Come laugh, learn, and love with us, your hosts, Peter and Teresa Martin. We're going to share stories, insights, everything on how to strengthen your marriage. We're going to have a lot of fun because we've got wisdom to share as long as it's shared with humor and maybe a glass of Italian red. Join us now for the next episode of Love That Lasts.
Welcome to Love That Lasts. We're your hosts, Peter and Teresa Martin.
Hey guys, you're back. If you're listening, thanks so much for sticking with us. And we've been having so much fun making these podcasts. And I hope that you've been enjoying them and learning a little bit. Maybe how have you been doing with the challenges? We'd love to hear. If you want to add it in the comments of the podcast, we'd love to hear back from you and to hear what you're thinking or maybe topics you'd like us to talk about in the future.
The thing that I enjoy is that we said that this was going to be a podcast with lots of laughter and joy, and yet it seems like there's always someone crying.
And I still, what the heck is wrong with me? I have not gotten to the point of setting up the podcast and getting a box of Kleenexes. I think someone, mostly me, has teared up during every single podcast. Oh my goodness.
It's all good.
But it's still fun. And what do they say? Like, grief is just love turned inside out. And that's what life is. It's living in the mess, right? You don't have to be happy or sad. It's both and. Like you're happy and you're sad and you're.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you remember the G.K. Chesterton quote?
Which one? Oh, a sane man is one who has tragedy in his heart, but humor in his head.
Yep.
And that for me, like we saw that quote when we were living in Bismarck. It's in there. Mary has this. Is it called the Chesterton? They're like pub on campus.
Yeah.
And so they have lots of G.K. Chesterton quotes up, and we had been had experienced this late term miscarriage, and I was going through a lot of grief. And to see that, like a sane man or a man of sanity or something, can have grief in his heart and humor in his head. And I'm like, it's so true. You have to be able to laugh. You have to be able to look at the sorrow and be like, all right, that's life. But you know what? We can still enjoy each other's company. We can still, and it doesn't mean that you're forgetting. I mean, I think the thing, at least for moms, like when you have especially a miscarriage loss, when you've lost a baby, there can be this guilt of, if I continue to enjoy life, it means I don't remember my child. And I know that doesn't make logical sense, but that's like the things that are in your head, and to just remind yourself that, no, that's not it at all. You will always remember your child. You do not have to worry that you are going to forget that precious life. On the other hand, it's okay to still enjoy the life around you and time with your husband or with your children that are living, and that doesn't mean that you've forgotten, and that you can have both. You can grieve and have joy, and it's a weird mix, and it's beautiful, but this is this beautiful thing called life that we're going through.
Yeah, absolutely. So today the topic of conversation is going to be communication.
Communication. I love this because the last episode we were talking about grace in the sacrament of marriage, and grace builds on nature and grace perfects nature, but you have to have the nature there. You have to know how to have a natural level of communication before God can work in a supernatural level of grace communication, So it's important to understand how best to communicate.
And
are you going to talk about the what we should do or what we shouldn't do?
What we should do, but first we'll give an example of what not to do. So we've already pointed out that our first 5 years were rough in marriage.
Even though we were like on this fantastic mission, we were living in Italy
in order to study theology of marriage and family. But we had to first learn the
going through the crucible.
The school of hard knocks, I guess, is the first school we went to. So we already talked about family of origin, and this plays a big role, and that's why we talk about it, is so that you recognize that all of most of the things that you come into marriage with happens to come from your past, your family of
Yeah.
origin. So, uh, I love my parents, and God bless them. They were lovely witnesses, and are still, mom's still with us. But as far as communication in marriage, I didn't see a lot of the two of them going on a date or having a long conversation, just the two of them. Mostly what I saw is when there was disagreement, they would pull themselves away and discuss. So I didn't see a great deal of deeper communication. And so I brought that into marriage. And when Teresa wanted to have a heart to heart, my first reaction was, why? What's wrong? Why would we need to have a heart to heart? I don't understand. We we're doing just fine.
Are you trying to fix me again?
Why would we wanna ruin that by having a heart to heart? So I just
Oh,
didn't
Peter,
have
I love
a
you.
great concept of the need, first of all, for Teresa to hear what was on my heart. I wasn't sure I understood myself.
Yeah.
So there was that I brought that into marriage. So those were our difficulties with communication to start out with, is just the fact that I didn't want to. I felt like if we needed to communicate, like sit down and talk, then something was wrong. Because I had this view that communication is a necessary means to
Solving
to
problems.
solve problems. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So that's where I was coming from.
Instead of just deepening your relationship.
Yeah.
And we've talked about family of origins in the past too, and like Pete said, like he came from this a rural life, Wisconsin farm, right? And I grew up in the suburbs of New Orleans, and my experience of life was just different. And we're not here to judge our parents; they were all doing the best that they could. But like in my household growing up, like, my parents didn't raise their voice. They wanted to have more of a calm household. They came from noisy households, so they didn't really raise their voice much. That did not necessarily mean that they were not upset. You could tell when people were upset, but just that they kept their tone down. And that was one thing that, we had to adjust to because so for me growing up, if someone was raising their voice, it was like super alarm bells, like
Mm,
something is seriously wrong. And so when we were first in our first year of marriage, when Pete would raise his voice, all the like alert, alert,
alarm
alert.
bells. Yeah.
And I would think something's well, that's just how his family communicated was with raised
Yeah.
voices.
I said, at the first time it happened, she's in tears. I'm like, "Wait, haven't you ever seen me watching the Packers? This is what we do. We get excited and we raise
It
our
just
voice, like we yell at the TV." But then I realized, no, actually, I don't think she's ever witnessed that. So she was frightened because I raised my voice. But the reality was, no, this is, I don't know, we're passionate about something.
and I
So
thought he was really angry, but
nah,
he was just really being intense about it, and then we were able to talk about it and figure it out, but
right.
that's all the stuff that comes so that could be an obstacle to communication.
Yeah.
And I do wanna talk about more kind of obstacles to communication, but also, like, what type of
Yeah.
communication do
That's,
couples really need to have? Now,
yeah.
there are levels of
Right,
communication.
exactly, and it's good to look at them because it helps you to see where you should be, and it's also kind of fun to see where people lie. So, and I don't mean by bearing false witness. I mean that where they
Where they
stand as
land on
far
the
as their communication level. So we live here in Wisconsin, and everyone around here in Minnesota too, are really good at this first level, and it's small talk. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
there's nothing better than having something like a bad storm. Everyone's talking the next day because you can talk about where the tornado landed or how much snow did you guys get, and so we're really good with the small talk, and that's just you're just bantering back and forth
Because you're not
about.
really revealing
No,
anything
these are
personally,
these are
right?
things
It's
outside of
for
you.
total public
Y-
conversation.
you don't share much about.
You're not being vulnerable at all.
Yeah, exactly. So you can walk away from that saying, "Hey, that person's really friendly." So kind of like, the doorman
Just chit
conversation.
chat.
You might get to know the guy's name, or the lady's name, and you're friendly, but or the person at the gas station. you might get to know their name or you read their name on the tag, but you're not gonna spend time with a deeper conversation because
You're just being friendly, and
yeah,
that's fine. And you're giving them a smile, and it's fine. It's not that's not bad. It's just that's that level of communication. You're not
absolutely.
necessarily revealing something about yourself. You just it's a something you could talk to anybody about. The second level is just sharing facts, like what you did during the day, just like your schedule, and that's it. Like you're not revealing, still not revealing anything but like if someone said, "How are you?" and you're like, "Well, I went to the store and helped the kids with their homework, and
Right.
now we're eating dinner." But you haven't really said how you are. You're
But at
just
least there's
sharing a little bit.
a little entering in, right? You're revealing a little bit about yourself. But again, it's pretty sanitary. Like nobody's going to judge you. I mean, facts are facts, and okay, that's what you did. And so you're getting a little deeper. And so what we're looking at is as this level, as you level up, you reveal more of yourself. And so the next one is the level where they tell you, you should never discuss politics or religion at work. And that's that third level where you're starting to reveal more about your opinions of things. And obviously, yeah, we see it, unfortunately, all over the internet, all over social media. These are the people, the trolls maybe,
Yeah.
are out there
Sharing
sharing where they're
opinions.
at and then
Yeah.
demoralizing you if you don't share their opinion. But the reason they say you shouldn't do that at work is because if you're sharing your opinion, someone might oppose that opinion. And so that's why some people just don't share that way because they don't necessarily want to get into why they believe what they believe. But again, the level's deeper because you're revealing more
You
about
are
yourself.
because someone could disagree.
Yep.
And so you are revealing, you're getting a little bit vulnerable when you're sharing your opinions, because someone could disagree with you. And so all of these, so we're getting deeper. So as we as we go into these deeper levels of communication, you're going from this place that's kind of public, safe sharing to a more private, more vulnerable sharing. So the
Hmm.
fourth and fifth levels kind of go together. The fourth is sharing your feelings, and the fifth would be sharing your needs. And this is not like I need a sandwich, but like I I'm exhausted, like emotionally exhausted, and I need you to just sit with me and spend time with me.
Mm,
Like that's what my heart really needs right now. And that is the deepest, most vulnerable place because even with feelings you're sharing, okay, I feel angry about this or I
mm,
feel upset about this and you're revealing something of yourself, but you're not putting yourself in a position of rejection as much as when you say, I need this. And if someone says, I'm not going to give it to you, then that's a really shattering place, right? But hopefully, when you're cultivating your marriage and when you open up to that space, when you can find a way to get to that space, and it doesn't happen all the time because you can't go around just like with your heart ripped open in this
right.
vulnerable place 24/7. You just can't. But when you have these moments with your spouse during the week where you can just sit down
Yeah.
and share that heart to heart, then they can carry that with them for the week. And so they know where your heart is. And even if you don't have to reveal it again and again and again,
Mm,
like, Pete can, if I've told him enough times what such and such does to me to helping the kids and homeschooling, and he can get home at the end of his workday and take one look at me and realize, I know what she needs right now. And be able to step in, pour me a glass of wine, let me take a break, and be able to cater to me. So what I'm saying is like it doesn't need to be this gushing all the time, but that you
right.
do take the time to create this space.
Yeah, and again, when we were first married, that to me was offensive. If Teresa said that she had needs that were not being met, or just even if she shared her feelings, I was like, because I was a man and I wanted to make sure
And
everything.
he didn't have feelings.
Well, it's funny. I still am a man. I don't know why I use the past tense, but no, I didn't want to recognize that there were that there were needs
Oh
because I
my
wanted to
gosh.
have it all figured out. And in my view of things, marriage should just work, and there shouldn't be a great deal of fussing. There shouldn't be a great deal of these heart to hearts unless it was really
This is
going wrong.
someone starts listening right at this. This is not his current opinion. This
No,
is
no, but honestly, that's who I was at the
oh my
beginning.
gosh.
I just felt like, "Wait, what's going wrong that she has to share her feelings with me? Like, I must be a horrible husband." This is how we started out, and it took me learning that I need to be able to share how I feel with her, or else she feels that I'm distant from her.
Yeah.
And once I learned that key point, I realized, "Oh, okay, I will work on this." And so early on, we started date night once a week. We scheduled it whenever we were both together at the same time. We said we're going to have once a week where we sit down. We also called it couch time at the beginning because we just sat down on the couch and talked about our week. We talked about our life, our dreams. We allowed ourselves to have a uninterrupted. Back then it was easier. We didn't have kids, but
Right.
no TV, no phones. Of course, phones weren't what they are now, but no distractions. Just she and I
To create,
having that fifth level
yeah.
conversation of, so how are you?
And and having that conversation, like, you have to create space and time for those conversations, because I it is not fair for me to kind
Mm,
of unload on Peter as he's trying to go to work, or he's in the middle of, a project in the garage or something. I mean, sometimes if something happens and but it would be out of the ordinary. Like, it's not fair for me to just all of a sudden, like, vomit these feelings onto him when he's not ready, when it's not the right space, he's not in the frame of mind to receive it. And then if I do that, and those are my mistakes at the beginning, like, trying to force this kind of like
mm,
intimate place when it wasn't, when he wasn't prepared to receive me at in that level, and so we had to that's why we set the time aside, and then I could be at peace knowing that we have this time set aside, that I can share all these things.
mm,
And sometimes the funny thing is like, so I didn't have to feel like I had to correct whatever it was right at that minute, right? And
right.
by the time Thursday night rolled around, sometimes that issue that I had on Monday, it wasn't even an issue anymore.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, sometimes,
Yeah.
but I had the peace knowing that if I still needed to talk about it, we have time on Thursday at our date night. And it doesn't mean we spent the whole date night kind of just talking intense feelings,
Right.
but making sure that there was time for that. And then we could watch a movie or
Yeah.
play a game or whatever, and be able to spend time with each other. And we still do that. So the kids
Yeah.
know that yeah, the older kids put the younger kids to bed, and we have date night once a week. And usually our date nights are date night in, like we've said before. We
Trying to think of the last time we went
I
out.
know. We are really a nonprofit, but we love it. We're blessed and it's wonderful. And we do making time for each other. Sometimes actually we prefer it because
We're
we
introverts.
at least Pete's definitely an introvert. I'm like a closet introvert because we could do the whole extrovert thing, but it drains us. And so yeah, like, thinking about being in other people's space for an extended time, we're just like, can we just hide in our room?
Yeah. So the key to being a good communicator isn't what you think. It's not having all the words and understanding your feelings and being able to articulate. It's not that at all. It's simply being humble enough to allow yourself to go there. And I'm speaking from a man's point of view. That can
Because
be
you're still a
very
man.
because I am still a man. That can be very difficult for us
Yeah.
to reveal our very intimate thoughts, reveal our hearts, because we're meant to be strong. We're meant to be in control. We're meant to be the ones who do not get emotional. So it takes humility for us to reveal our hearts. But I would advise all of us men to make a practice of sharing your heart with your spouse, and that's all. You don't have to do this to the world. You don't have to have cameras pointing at you while you're sharing while you're sharing your heart. It's something that will uh, pay you back a hundredfold. I can guarantee you, but it will also bring your spouse great peace to know that you're willing to share your vulnerabilities, your
Yeah.
weaknesses, but whatever is on your heart, you're willing to share. And that's really the key to being a good communicator, is that first step of being humble enough to go there. And now at the beginning, when Teresa asked what was on my mind, for the most part, it was very practical things. And I was in seminary, and this was the way it was with spiritual direction for the first couple of years too. And then later, as I got older and I actually read about what spiritual direction was, I realized, oh, that poor priest.
That would have been
he,
better.
he had at least an hour a week, or every other week, I think we met, but that was his penance. Was listening to Pete
I'm
ramble
sure
on.
that there were others, kind of at that same level as well. I just when we had Father Sam on, he said vulnerable people do the most good.
Mm,
And I think that's very, very true in marriage. So it's this, yeah, being courageous enough to be vulnerable, because not only are you kind of like breaking down your own walls, right? To you're bearing your heart to your
mm,
spouse. Because being vulnerable means there's a potential for rejection, there's a potential for pain, because you're opening up this deepest space of yourself. And it might be that if you're being vulnerable, you might be being vulnerable by saying, this thing that you've been doing, I know you don't mean to hurt me when you do this, but it actually does. And I want to bring it up just so you're aware, because you might not even be aware.
mm.
And that's hard to say because you don't want to hurt your spouse's feelings. But you know that if it continues, it's a slow thing that's eating at you, and you don't want that to keep going. So if you know, but don't do that in your first date night, okay? But like if you get in the habit of creating this vulnerable space, then you can bring those things up, and you can get past those what would have been like landmines that you just don't talk about that, or you just don't go
Mm,
there.
yeah.
And when you can resolve that, but sometimes upturning it means it's a little bit more mess than it is clean. But if you can get through the mess, then it's cleaner on the other side, and
Yeah.
there's more joy on the other side, and then there's not things to be walking around and
Yeah,
cautious of.
and on a practical note as well, if you're a newlywed, or maybe you've been married for a while and you haven't really gotten to this level of communication, don't feel ashamed. We've given this talk on communications many times before, and old couples would come to us who'd been married for like 40 years saying, "Oh wow, we've never gotten to that level. We raised several kids, we got them all through school and
We're
all the
super
sports,
managers of
and
the
yeah,
household.
we communicated a lot about our calendars, but we never really got to that level. So I think we're going to start, and that's fine. Start whenever.
Yeah,
But the practical
it's
note
never too late.
that I wanted to say was that it will be very helpful when the tragedy occurs.
Mm.
And I'm not trying to be all
Doom and
puddle
gloom.
glum
Yeah.
here, but the
Eeyore.
reality is that life happens and tragedy occurs in our marriage. And when you are a good communicator, it's like insurance for that tragedy, because you'll be able to get through it. Now, we've been in marriage ministry for most of our married lives, and we've seen a lot, and we've now seen the patterns. So those people that have the tragedy, and God bless them, some of these things are so hard, like child loss, and loss of job, all of these things. It doesn't matter what your tragedy is; it hurts.
Yeah.
And if you're not there at that level of communication, it's going to be very difficult for you to get through it. If you are there, it's still a tragedy and it's still difficult, but you are going to go through it just fine because you'll be together. And I'll go back to the reason for the emphasis on humility, is that when we get married, we have this expectation that our marriage is great, our love is strong, and we think back of the pictures at the wedding and how cute we are and how perfect it all
Yeah.
looks, which is great. Obviously, we want it to be perfect, but then we think, I just want it to be perfect. I don't want to actually have to
To keep
work
working
on
at
it.
it.
Like, and that's humility, to
Yeah.
recognize that your spouse isn't perfect, and your marriage isn't that picture perfect look, but you're striving, and when you admit that, hey, we're two imperfect individuals, and then work on yourselves together, that's where that deep communication is absolutely necessary.
And so I think it's also a matter of, Pete said, recognize that your marriage isn't perfect. And this is who are you who are you trying to prove it's perfect to?
Mm,
And it could be people around you, it could be parents, it could be like, but I feel like there is some kind of like inner urge to prove we have a good marriage.
mm,
And that can actually be destructive to your marriage. If you're constantly trying to prove to everyone that you have a good marriage, listen, like the best marriages still need counseling. The best marriages need help. That's why they become the best marriages. Peter and I have both had bouts of going through counseling and therapy, and I think it's great. You find a good counselor, they're like worth their weight in gold. And because there's junk that like, builds up from our
mm,
childhood, that like our own self perceptions, there's stuff that gets in the way, and these are all things that we need to be sensitive about that can be obstacles to our communication. But like, I think even we're trying so hard, like especially people who are religious minded, people who are trying to live good and holy lives. And I commend you and I praise you for that. That's wonderful. I think the trap that at least for women and maybe for men too, but for women especially, because I am a woman, so I can speak from that.
even still.
Even still, um, but that's there is kind of this internal competition
Mm,
and like this comparativeness that we put upon ourselves. Social media makes it worse. So if you can get off of social media or just limit your time, you will have more joy because
mm,
again, comparison is the thief of joy. And and just remember that it's okay not to be perfect. And in fact, it's better to recognize because the truth is that you're not.
mm,
And so to recognize that we're not, then God can use us. Peter and I talk about this balance that JP2 talks about of keeping always this balance between the real and the ideal. That's how you see the whole person because we're always changing and we're always striving for heaven, right? That's our ideal to be forever united with God one day. But our real is happening right now. And so when we can admit our real and take down those defenses first, just with in that vulnerable space with our spouse and be like, actually, I'm still struggling with this. I know
mm,
we worked on it. I know I said I'd work on it, but I'm still falling into the same traps. And you can go to confession and confess it to God, but sometimes it's good to confess it to your spouse too,
mm,
because of like what we talked about last time of that conjugal spirituality. If you haven't listened to that one, go back and listen to that one. But that God can love me through Pete. And through Pete saying, I forgive you. That was in the past. And I forgive you. And that is not who you are. And your identity, JP2 says, is not a sum of your weaknesses and failures, but it is a sum of the Father's love for you and your true potential to be an image of his son. And that's where we need to like hold on to when we get in these, because I think that it's scary. And I think you really do need courage to be able to get in that vulnerable space. Wouldn't you
yeah.
say? Like that's humility is scary.
And the reality is, this all pertains to that conjugal spirituality, because what we're doing when we communicate who we really are, that deep need that we have, we're sharing our personhood with our spouse. We're getting to that deep level, and we're dying to ourselves by allowing ourselves to be loved for who we are. It takes deep humility for me to share how I feel, but that's what I promised to do at the altar. I promised to share my love
Give yourself
with her
fully.
in good times and in bad.
Yes.
But what I didn't know was that also included that humility of sharing my weakness with her.
Yeah.
But again, it's such an amazing thing of how we can feel even afraid to share something with our spouse, but God brought her to you. he knows what you need, and he has given that person to you. So to get to that level of being able to share even your weakest moments, that's God's gift to you, even though it feels like, and it is a death, it feels really difficult because we do have egos, right? We don't want someone to know that we're not who we want to be. But yet, when you share that part, when you die to yourself, as we said at the Conjugal Spirituality podcast, then believe it or not, you are filled. Like, even though you feel like, oh, this is going to empty me, this is going to take me to a point where she won't love me. It's untrue. So
But Satan wants to keep you there.
yeah,
He wants to keep you in that spot of, um, doubting, and it goes back to the Garden of Eden, right? Like,
yeah,
doubting God's love for you,
right.
doubting God's mercy and forgiveness,
Doubting your
and
own worth.
yeah. And so so how many times have we gone and eaten that fruit because Satan's tempting us? No, this way is better than God's way. Holding back is better than being open.
Mm,
He'll never forgive you.
mm,
Your spouse will never forgive you. God will never forgive you. It's fine like this, just keep it wrapped up like this, and
mm,
your
yeah,
marriage is held together with duct tape. And honestly, like, well, we use that example, but only because God showed us something more. Like,
right,
oh my goodness,
right.
every time God goes further, and there was this spot, and in our marriage, and it felt like God was like, I want to get in there, and we're like, no, no, don't touch
Yeah,
it, that hurts.
that's locked down. We're
That's fine.
not.
We've fixed it, and then you can imagine, like, you've patched it together with duct tape and
Yeah.
like all these like weird little add-ons, and God is like, I want to take that down and rebuild it better.
Well, and the reality is we think that we're holding this secret inside and we'll take it to the grave and no one will ever know.
God
But
already knows.
God knows, and the chances are the people around you know. There's a
Mm.
sense that, okay, there's something there that's bugging that person. So just let it out. And again, you're not going to do that on your first date night or your first couch time and your first deep conversation. You're not going to just spew all the things from the past, or at least you shouldn't. But after a time, and with God's grace, and to be able to trust your spouse with that is a treasure. To be able to give yourself and to be that vulnerable, it is absolutely a gift.
Yeah. So, what should the conjugal spirituality challenge be this week?
So last week we sent you out on a date. This week I would say let's do the couch time. Let's have date night. Let's set aside time to just try to get to that deepest level. And if it's overwhelming, don't push it. We don't, it, there's no reason to be awkward
Right.
about this. You've got plenty of time.
And just and as you're approaching in this, okay, don't approach it with I need to get this done. What you're doing is setting aside time to love your spouse.
Yeah.
And instead of thinking all the things you want to share, think of all the things you want to learn
Mm,
about your spouse. Like, so the two of you, and if your spouse isn't watching this, you can, share the episode with them, but um so that you're both going into it, what can I learn from my spouse? The only purpose then is to go in and say, I want to love you in this space. I want to be
mm,
a healthy, receptive um, place for you. Because if you come in, if I go in and tell Pete I'm upset about something, and then he is upset that I'm upset, then that's not a place where I can really share freely, right?
right.
Because then all of a sudden I feel bad for having feelings. That's not where we want to be. That's not where we want to be. And so if we can go into it in just a place of focusing on the love, and focusing on how you're going to receive others' love, I think that would be
Yeah.
the best
And,
place.
we've seen all sorts of advice as to, how to get your spouse to have a date night or to
Yeah.
have this couch time. I I I don't know that it's necessary to manipulate. Offering is the best. And if it doesn't work out, then don't consider it a failure. Just say, all right, well,
Try again next
maybe
week.
we should plan something. Like, let's do something fun. What would you like to do?
Yeah.
And then
So maybe the deep conversation can wait if you're not ready yet and you
yeah,
go
fishing.
fishing. You and me going fishing anytime.
I don't know, whatever it is that your spouse likes to do, just say, "Hey, I'd like to do that with you." And as you grow closer and get more comfortable, then you can say, "Hey, can we talk about something like our dreams in marriage? Can we talk about maybe future plans for
Yep.
the next 5 years where we see ourselves or what we'd like to see happen?" Those are the ways that you get to that level is by starting somewhere. And
And the fact that you're even listening to this podcast, those of you who are listening, shows that you obviously care about your marriage and you love God and you want to grow. And so you guys are doing great. So don't beat yourself up. Be gentle with yourself. And we're
and recognize that, some people come to this maybe with a motivation of, yeah, we're just having a hard time and I just need some tips or tricks, and that's fine. Don't that
yeah,
God brought you here for a reason, and if that's where you're at, that's great. Whatever motivation it was needed for you to be here, God wanted to use it so
yeah.
that you could have a marriage that lasts and a deeper love. And with that, as we've said before, we'll say it again, that, it's worthwhile because you receive all the joy, and that not only
Yeah.
you, but the people around you, your children. Yeah, it seems like we're salespersons here, but it's absolutely true that if you
Love
get
Jesus, find joy.
absolutely, if you get to this level where your marriage is thriving, everything around you also thrives.
It's so good, guys. So thank you so much again for joining us. Thank you for sharing your hearts with us and for all the notes that you've sent and reaching out. We just absolutely love it. We love spending this time with you. Hopefully you've enjoyed it too. May God bless you. Have a wonderful week.
God bless.